Awesome. Okay. So thank you for attending our webinar on life and law during the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that pretty much says it all, but it's really just a conversation between lawyers and other professionals on, latest news, updates, maybe get some of our concerns addressed, and just getting tips on how to cope during these trying times. These times are unprecedented. I don't know how, if anyone has prepared for all of the ramifications, but we have fantastic professionals that probably, based on their fields, can give us insights into how we could have been better prepared and what we can do going forward, and especially how we can even just get through the present. So on our panel, we have two familiar faces with AP lawyers. There's Anissa Datu. For those that don't know Anissa and Shireen are AP lawyers. I'm going to introduce them. So Anissa practices in family and immigration. So she balances on both perspectives. She has worked with a lot of clients on a variety of matters, from custody battles to, families that are just trying to make their dreams of immigrating to Canada come true. She's worked at various firms in the past, and she brought that wealth of experience to AP lawyers, and she's just very, very highly motivated in getting her clients results. Shireen has been with us for a few years, even though she's a recent call, but she has a lot of family law experience. She's, worked very closely on multiple trials on family law matters. She is very settlement focused, because if there's one thing you learn very quickly as a litigator, is there's a lot of better alternatives than just having to go to the courts all the time. And with this pandemic and not having access to the courts, I'm hoping Shireen can share some insights into how she's been able to manage her files. Shireen's practice is 100% family law. That's all she eats, breathes, and drinks. So we can't wait to hear her insights. And we have Zachary Rain, who is a financial advisor. Hi, Zachary. He's a financial advisor with Rain Finance. And Zachary helps his clients achieve and I'm going to read this from his bio because it's so well written. I'm not even going to rephrase this. So he helps his clients achieve both their short and long-term goals by prioritizing their needs and wants throughout the financial planning process. By utilizing his experience and access to specialists in all areas of the financial service industries, he's able to provide tailored solutions, recommendations, and strategies for individuals, families, business owners, and professionals. So in short, all of us, okay? Zachary can work with every one of us. So as a lifetime coach, he's committed to working alongside you and I and providing guidance and support in our journey to achieving financial security and peace of mind. And boy, do we need peace of mind right now. So Zachary's mission is to bring the future into the present, and I can't wait to hear some of the tips that Zachary is going to be sharing with us today. And on our panel as well is Rehan Namdari. Okay, so Rehan is a psychotherapist and runs the Montreal Art Therapy and Child Psychology Center. If we never understood the need for, mental health professionals, it's so obvious now, it cannot be overstated. Ryan is a registered psychotherapist, and she has a master's degree in art therapy. That's interesting. And I hope you will be able to share a little bit more about art therapy with us today. But Ryan's goal is to provide mental health services to children, teens, and families, and to advocate for children's mental health in Canada, especially Indigenous children. Rehan and her team of pediatric therapists provide therapy services in Montreal and Toronto, and are also equipped to provide secure online therapy, which is really needed right now. And there is more. We'll provide, we'll send out an email with a link to Rehan's website as well. And I'm sure we will do the same for all the professionals to get more information on the work that they do. And we have Aaron, last but not least, he's a real estate agent. Hi, Aaron. Aaron has almost a decade of experience in all forms of real estate transactions. So that's great. Like he does commercials, investments, industrial and residential transactions. And he's part of the Forest Hills brokerage in Richmond Hill. He has a background of about 12 years as a corporate executive. And interestingly, Aaron's background is in biotechnology engineering. So he has a BSc in engineering, and he also has an MSc in engineering, industrial engineering, and in the management industry. Wow, that's impressive. And he left all of that, left the corporate world, and decided to join the real estate industry because it's a passion for him. And so he's grown his business, and that's his life career now. And he creates value for his clients by using his diverse experience in finding ways to satisfy his clients. So we have a very qualified team of experts, if I say so to speak, to us today. And for just as a general housekeeping, at the bottom of your screen, if you want to ask a question, if you hover just at the bottom of the Zoom screen, you should see something that says Q&A. And if you type in the questions, we'll be able to get to those at the end. My intention is to just dive right in because I know there's a lot of information to be shared. And then at the end, we will address all the questions. I must warn people that we sometimes can't get to all the questions because we have a great team here, and I know you have lots of questions, but not to worry, put your questions in. Whatever doesn't get answered during our time here today, we will send out an email and we will make sure that you get the answers that you need. Okay. All right, Anita, I'm going to have you unmute yourself because I want to dive right in with you. So how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected your practice?
So it's a good question. As a family law lawyer, I saw different aspects with all of my files. So Angela, like you said, I do a lot of different types of litigation, a lot of different types of family law files, from custody to finance, some appeals and things like that. Initially, when Ontario went into a state of emergency, frankly, I don't think that lawyers were equipped, especially litigation lawyers. I don't think that we were equipped to deal with the changes of the court. So my litigation files that I had upcoming, and I actually had one right on the day that Ontario announced the state of emergency. So I was like, what do I do? My opposing counsel called me. What do I do? What do we do? The clients were in limbo as well. And frankly, we were in limbo for quite a bit of time. And there are so many different cases and decisions that came out. One of the really popular ones from the early onset was Ribeiro and Wright, which went over a list of the factors for if you want to bring an urgent court matter during this time. And we got a whole new set of precedent case law. So we were, as a lawyer, I was, again, educating myself on a whole new kind of set of practices and procedures for my litigation files. And I'll touch base on that again. But what I want to also say is for my other files, I had other files that dealt strictly with just financial matters. We weren't in court, or some of them we were in court, but we could also come up with creative ways, and we were forced to, for some of them, come up with creative ways to deal with some of their issues. So maybe that was, just dealing strictly with negotiation with the opposing counsel or with the parties, and also just if we were collecting financial disclosure and if there was any type of delay or anything like that, because a big part of family law is financial disclosure. And for anyone who's gone through a family law matter or any type of separation, you know that there's a fair bit of financial disclosure that's required. And this was a great time. And I was really encouraging my clients, and I said, take advantage of this opportunity, because right now, this is a great time to get everything filed. Especially for those who were working from home or who unfortunately were laid off. I said, make the most of your time. This isn't just a time for spring cleaning. This is a time to get your matter up and moving. So it was very successful on that end in terms of getting a lot of my client matters to advance in different ways that might not have happened if we didn't have the pandemic.
Oh, so Anissa, I'm not hearing chaos. So there was no chaos for you. It
Oh,
was
no,
just
no, I'm getting to that.
okay,
There was
everything
chaos.
stopped, and now we're just gonna do things different, which is fantastic. Hey, if that's your story, that's what happened for you, which is great. Or is that what you're saying? That there was no chaos
No,
whatsoever?
no, no, no. I was just right now, I was just focusing mainly on the matters that I was able to successfully move, because there was the good side to the pandemic in practice, and then there was the bad side.
We
So
want
I'll
to hear
jump
some of
into.
the bad sides.
All right, well, let's do that. So in terms of the bad side, a lot of that focused around a few things, and there's some prevalent issues. There are some other ones as well, but I want to focus on just a few issues which directly relates to our panels today, because I had issues of custody and access. I had issues of support, financial support for either spousal support or child support that wasn't being paid. And I also had an issue of disposing or selling the matrimonial home. So
Didn't we all?
with regards to, yeah, with regards to custody and access, I mean, I think that was a huge, huge issue for not only myself, but for you guys at the office and for other lawyers as well. Because again, urgency in family law during this period, and it still is right now, was very fluid. And there were so many different definitions that were coming through case law, through precedent case law. There's so many seminars that were held that we took part of, and so many different lawyers had different things to say. And it was interesting because sometimes the decisions that we got from the bench and from the triage judges actually kind of sometimes contradicted themselves, which is hard as a lawyer to advise your client. Especially when, when they're doing their own research as well. And you really have to sometimes either just dive in, take the risk, or, you had to obviously be very, very calculated. But for example, what I really wanted to touch base on was there were cases, for example, in early March that said that for urgency, and this case is specifically Thomas and Walber, the concern must be immediate. That can't wait till a later date. So for all of my clients that needed something, could your matter wait till a later date? The concern must be serious, that there is significant near health and safety or economic concerns, or there must be a definite and material or something tangible, where something tangible can actually be demonstrated to the court rather than theoretical. So rather than, for example, oh, my safety's at risk, which is unfortunate, but if you had a fear for your safety being at risk versus I was actually put in that situation where, for example, I might have had to have called the police and things like that. Or, custody and access wasn't working out, or the father of my children, for example, was going to work and he worked very close by to someone whose father had COVID, for example.
And so you touched on something I found very interesting, because you said about safety. So honestly, right now, I don't think anything is more unsafe to me than suspecting someone has COVID and is in my personal space. So based on the case law, do you think that would COVID, has it risen to the point where someone can get a restraining order just because, they're fearful of the other party, or you don't think so?
It's a hard one, and I'll tell you why. I'm gonna say no, just as if you just want a general yes or no answer, no. Because again, the case law has been very clear in the last couple months that it has to be something demonstrated. There has to be evidence. For the limited court resources that we have, the judges have a very little tolerance for things that they actually can't see physically, or they can't be given evidence of physically, that they can make a ruling on. Because if they can't physically see it, there are so many other different ways that that we could work through the matter, as opposed to running to court maybe like we used to prior to the pandemic. So if there was a concern for safety for some of my clients, there was I advised them to get out of the house if you absolutely need to, have a safety plan, have put yourself in one side of the room or something like that. Text your friend, right? Keep a communication back and forth, call the police if you needed, right? So at the end of the day, I always said, I'm the last person you need to call, because if your immediate safety is at risk, then there are different ways to deal with this, as opposed to running to court. But it's interesting that you say that, Angela, because I know we are definitely trying to keep this in a time limit, but there was a recent case which actually took a slightly different approach. because after weeks of being told that the court can only deal with the urgent situations, and that parents are expected to work out their differences, people who are paying support are expected to, kind of be creative, right? If someone was laid off and they can't make their support payments, what are they supposed to do? Is it really reasonable to run to court and waste the court's time for something that, might pick up in a couple months, and dealing with something in the interim right now? Or, just maintain the status quo, for example. So there's a decision that came out just a few weeks ago that was sent a slightly different message. And the judge in this case basically heard the matter successfully. And where the applicant didn't have, in my opinion, an urgent issue, the judge wrote in her decision saying that the court can take judicial notice of the fact that restrictions on hearings arising from COVID-19 emergencies will lead to a substantial backlog of cases. So the judges are aware that there is a huge backlog of cases. And frankly, I'm not necessarily looking forward to the backlog, because I've had so many cases that were canceled during this time, or rescheduled, I should say. So they've been adjourned to another date upcoming. And we've had to kind of deal with those issues. But in this case, it says where the emergency abates, the court will face unprecedented workload demands in dealing with the backlog. There is then a substantial systematic benefit to resolving those matters that can be dealt with under the new expansion of workload now. So even though we're technically still in a state of emergency, we're technically still in the urgent matters right now, it's interesting to see kind of how things have gone. So whereas maybe a couple weeks ago, my opinion was different, we have to stay fluid, because like I said at the beginning, urgency is fluid. And this one's basically saying this judge was willing to hear the case because this judge acknowledges that the backlog is not serving anybody. These parties are going to have to come back anyways. They've come now. Let's deal with it now. It's cases like this that definitely throw a curveball in our practice, but I mean, hey, we signed up for that. So, and it's cases like this that really make me rethink, my clients who had issues with parenting, who wanted to get their access, who were, the other party was unilaterally changing the access. And I have to really give it to my clients. And if any of my clients are watching, how hard we've worked to maintain the best arrangement that we could right now. Because there was a lot of chaos with regards to the matrimonial home that I was referencing earlier. That matter actually went to court and it was denied because the court didn't see it as urgent enough to sell the home right now, even though, my client was destitute. She had nothing. She really relied on this. Then COVID came. And I know, Iran, you'll definitely touch base on this, but for us, it was very risky for her. We didn't know what the market was going to be.
And so I want you to be able to touch on the future of, on where you see the future. And it looks like it's in the near future, right? The courts, looks like we're heading in the right direction of everything reopening, fingers crossed, of course. Do you think that, how do you see things playing out with litigation going into the next stage with the courts reopening?
I really think that this has been fine-tuning for litigation. There were probably so many matters that could maybe not go back to court at all, because they figured out a way to compromise, to communicate in light of the circumstances. So that's good. There are so many matters that are just itching for the moment to get back in. So the courts are definitely, in my opinion, I think they're going to be swamped. But I feel like there's been a lot of communication. There's been a lot of problem solving. Shireen's definitely going to touch base on different other ways that I actually didn't end up exploring this way, but she did, in terms of different ways to handle the future of matters, which especially just remote practices, remote hearings, right? A lot of these court matters that were heard were done remotely, right? Everyone was on Zoom. The judge was there. You're in your own room, your client's in their own house or their office, and they're dealing with court matters. And I think it's definitely a change that everyone has to adapt to. But I think that, it's actually becoming into a way that we should have been addressing earlier. Like I said, I don't think as lawyers we were equipped for this if you had litigation cases, because, why not do the remote hearings, right? We have clients in different countries that have Ontario family law matters.
Yeah.
And we'd have to teleconference, but it's great now that we're able to do video conferences and stuff like that, which is amazing. It's great that there's electronic filing,
Okay.
and chaos will always be there.
So let me see. Let's hear from you, Shireen. How has the COVID-19 affected your practice?
Oh, it's been great. I mean that loosely. So I had to kind of find my own process in dealing with my client files, just because, the files that were in litigation, what are we going to do? How are we going to push forward? Because there is going to be a backlog. It's going to be a delay, regardless of what happens. There's going to be some sort of delay. And if they're not in litigation, they still need some sort of process. And again, if there were files that I've had that, we were rooting towards kind of maybe going towards a litigation route just because of the outcomes that we were getting, and just maybe sometimes it's your last resort anyway. So we've kind of had to find a process, and for me, that's been alternative forms of dispute resolution, and that can be mediation or arbitration, and even a collaborative family law, which I haven't done in this COVID situation, but I've definitely done mediation and arbitrations, and these are all conducted online, so it's definitely a lot more effective. So we've kind of had to push forward and really just kind of find a process that works best for the clients, and that, if mediation is not appropriate for everybody, again, so it's definitely, case sensitive, depending on the circumstances. So you've definitely had to kind of adapt. Of course, our systems, luckily for our firm, we're already equipped to kind of deal with anything that kind of happens remotely anyway. We operate that way. Everything is, we're pretty good with technology. So, we're in 2020. So it's luckily for us, we didn't have to do too much to adapt. It was just with the court closures and their limited capacity, as Anissa touched on, because they are only hearing urgent or very limited matters. And I think at this point, it's only one or a few issues and limited to 30 minutes, depending on where you are or, what jurisdiction you're in. And again, so it's not entirely effective if you have multiple issues. And again, if your matter doesn't meet the threshold for urgency. So it's kind of been a tick for tat. Sure.
Yeah, so with the ADR, and ADR is alternate dispute resolution. So with that, did anything with ADR change? I'm guessing Zoom mediations weren't. It was a thing, but I'm guessing it wasn't as much of a thing as it is right now.
For sure, it's been interesting actually, and I think. Well, a lot of people, even the mediators and arbitrators that I've been working with, have told me that it's actually a little more effective just because it really gets people to focus. You're on a screen, you're looking at each other, and you can, depending on the circumstances, you could put people in a certain room, and depending on how your Zoom features work. So you could definitely cater it towards the parties. And it's definitely, they're saying that it doesn't take as long to get to a settlement because it's a little more focused as versus a long day of sitting in the office and having, a mediation that takes, 8 hours. It could probably take up to 4. So it's definitely reduced the amount of time that you have to, prepare for a mediation and do one. So it's definitely been a lot easier. And then also in terms of even 4-way meetings for settlements. So we've been doing those via Zoom too, and those have been pretty effective for us.
4-way meeting. What's a 4-way meeting, Shireen?
Well, a 4-way meeting is going to be between the parties and the respective lawyers, and you're all just going to be, well, in this case, it's going to be online, and it's going to be, I'm just going to use Zoom as an example, and you could all be on the screen, and essentially you can even share screens. So, if you have an issue or you want to, pull up a financial statement, which is a long financial document that's required, usually depending on support and property, but I won't get into that because that will take all day. But definitely it's a little more interesting, but definitely effective in its own way. And I think it's kind of helped manage my clients and their files and just move forward really as a process.
Okay. So it's not been, so your client matters didn't stop as a result of COVID-19?
Definitely not. They're moving, and in fact, it gives you a little more of because sometimes litigation is there, given the limited capacity, it kind of forced some files to kind of still move and maybe consider an alternative option that we maybe should have, could have, done before, and maybe the parties weren't open to it before, but now given that they know it may prolong the issue with court, that maybe they're a little more open to proceeding with the mediation arbitration.
Okay. Okay, that sounds great. Okay, I will circle back to you, Sheree, but I'm excited to hear what COVID-19 did to the financial industry. So, how did it affect your practice, Zachary? And you're on mute, so you may need to unmute yourself, please.
Hi,
So
Angela.
you're,
Thank you.
you're in your
COVID, it affected my financial practice in a few ways. First and foremost, everything went digital, which I think is great. I think it's just an easier opportunity for people to meet. Prior to COVID, we lived in a very hustle bustle, type of society. So the fact that we can, limit our travel time and everything and meet online it's really special. Otherwise, at the beginning of COVID, I got a lot of questions. A lot of things were flooding in, mainly life insurance. I think when COVID started, people started thinking about mortality in a way. And so they wanted to make sure that they were protected, their families are protected, could be their businesses were protected or anything. And so I was getting a lot of questions on life insurance. Do I have enough? How much is enough? And for the sake of time, I'm not going to get into that because, I could talk for hours about that.
But Zachary, I just don't want to miss out on this. Are people still able to get life insurance with right now? They can?
Yeah. If you really want to know the truth, it's easier to get life insurance now than it was before because what happened is part of the life insurance underwriting process is you have to meet with somebody. They do a couple of tests, and this is only for some people, but they do tests to see how healthy you are because that affects how much life insurance you can get and the cost of it. And because that kind of practice closed down when COVID started, we relied a lot more on doctor's notes, and people go to the doctor, it's a good practice to go see your doctor. So it became a lot easier. We have online application processes. For instance, for Canada Life, we have Simple Protect, which is just a fantastic software. What we can do is we can apply, you on one side of the screen, me on the other. We can apply for all forms of life insurance just within 10, 15 minutes.
Awesome. Good to know. Okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And so from life insurance, people started asking me, what kind of insurances are there? We have critical illness insurance, disability insurance. Critical illness covers you in case you ever got diagnosed with a critical illness. So there's the big ones like heart attack, stroke, cancer, and it's a one-time tax-free payout, which is really, really helpful, especially for people in these situations. Then we have disability insurance, and disability insurance is it's an income replacement. So if you ever were to become disabled, COVID, I think, made a lot of people think about it because a lot of people are unemployed right now. They're not working. We have the government who's providing CERB and, different options for us. But people are thinking, where's my money going to come from? Where's my next paycheck coming in? And if you were to ever become disabled, this is the reality. And so disability insurance provides you with that income replacements for, however we structure the type of insurance you get. So those are the first immediate questions I got, because people were thinking, oh my God, do I have enough insurance? And then after that, it was a great opportunity to move to estate planning, which was, it's a big part of what I do. I think it's definitely overlooked. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll think, I need a will, and wills are great and all. And I love helping people produce wills. But there's more aspects to estate planning. Like, for instance, some people, unfortunately, when they pass, they have money being left to their families. And it's a great thing to do to save money. And it's what we call wealth transfers. So intergenerational wealth, parents moving it to their children, grandparents moving it to whoever. And we want to be efficient with these kinds of things because there's the executor. And when you pass, you have an estate tax, you have probate fees, you have executor fees. And all of these are very expensive in the long run. Not to mention, when you have these things, your money can get tied up for sometimes months, years, and it's a long time to wait for something. It's a long time to wait for anything, especially when sometimes you need the money for final expenses. So there's a few great products that we have and solutions that we have. One that is for sure overlooked is segregated funds. A lot of people know what a mutual fund is. It's just a big pool of all these great investments, but they don't know what a segregated fund is. A segregated fund is essentially, it's built like a mutual fund, so it has the same investment components, but it's sold by an insurance company. And the beautiful thing about segregated funds is that they go right to your beneficiaries. So it passes through probate. Obviously, it's hard to avoid estate taxes, but it passes through probate. And so the money can get to your family within weeks rather than months and years, which is, it's an amazing solution. On top of that, there's guarantees, which are fantastic because, when COVID came around, the markets, depending on how you were invested, it took a dip. It took a dip, to say the least. Some people lost 30, 40, 50. I know a few people who've lost 60% of their investments. They weren't invested with me because I'd never let that happen. But they unfortunately lost a good chunk of change. And what a seg fund does is it offers you guarantees. So if you invested something like $100,000 and you got an 100% guarantee in maturity and on your death, if you were to pass and you lost 60%, we top that 60% back up, which it's fantastic. And so those guarantees are very, very special and very useful. And it's something that a mutual fund wouldn't offer you, right?
Yeah. So the segregated fund sounds like something that should be very appealing to older people, don't you say? Because what I realized from talking to my clients and even family and things like that is seniors got some were really blindsided by all of the losses that they had to suffer, and I think it might affect some people's retirement planning and all of that. So would you say this is it's something that would be more advisable for people that are looking, that are closer to retirement?
100%. The rule of thumb is with maturity guarantees that we have with segregated funds, some of them are 10 years and some are 15 years. So that means that you invest, this amount in 2020, right? And if you have a 15-year maturity, then whatever time in 2020 you invested, at that same time in 2035, you have that maturity guarantee. So I like to have people who are going to be approaching retirement within the next 10, 15 years invest in segregated funds, because then you have that maturity guarantee option when you actually need the money, right? When people are saving for their retirements, hopefully, they're financially planning well. So they are not going to need to draw any of that money when they're 50, maybe 55, 60, but later on. And then eventually, once they reach retirement, whatever that date is to them, whatever their lifestyle is to them at that time, and that's what we've planned for, they have access to that money and they have access to the maturity, so that if COVID strikes, you don't lose, 3-4 years of your retirement because unfortunately the market didn't perform well. And, there's always an opportunity for the market to rebound, and long-term investment shows that the market only goes up, which is great. It's great in the long run. But when you're in retirement and you need the money, not in 5, 6, 7 years, 10 years, you need the money tomorrow. You really need these maturities and you need to be invested properly.
Okay. So I guess everyone should have been talking to you before now. That's obviously clear, because this is beyond just getting mutual funds and being insured. There's a lot more thought I can gather that goes into this. So that's very obvious. But for those that didn't and now they're here, have they kind of lost out on that opportunity? Is this still a good time to buy other, well, you did answer insurance, so that's fantastic. It's good to know that this is not a bad time to get it. But what about other, investment vehicles?
For sure. Now,
or is now still a good time?
I think now is always a good time, whether now is, was 5 days ago, it was 5 hours ago, or it's 2 weeks from now. Now is always a great time to invest, because a lot of people ask me if there's a market timing aspect to it, which basically means, do I invest Tuesday at like 2 o'clock, or do I invest, in January instead of December, or March instead of, April? And the true answer is I don't have a glass ball. So if I did, obviously I'd love to give you the answer, which is why it's important to always be contributing. And it's a model that I live by. It's the ABC of investment model. Which is always be contributing to your investment account, because then you're reaching the market at every point. And when you do that, you're able to level out whatever fluctuation you have. Is now especially a good time to invest? Yes, the markets are erratic, so it depends on things like your timeline. Do you need the money next year? Do you need it a month from now? Do you need it 10 years from now? So those are certainly things we need to consider, and that will determine how much risk you can take. And that's actually another thing I was going to talk about, which is asset allocation. So I'm just going to segue into that. It's probably the second thing that people called me about. So the first was life insurance. Then they're like, oh my God, my investments, some aren't doing well. My clients, thankfully, knock on wood, we've done a good job. They haven't had too much to worry about. But there's a few horror stories I've heard out there. People losing big chunks of their retirement, people losing a big chunk of their down payment for a property that they want. And so a big portion of investing, and it's something that I do with my clients before we invest, is what I like to call risk analysis. And that just basically means, when do you need the money? How much risk can we take? A lot of people like to invest in stocks. Why? They're exciting. But unfortunately, that excitement means that there's a great opportunity to make money, and there's also a great opportunity to lose money. And they saw with COVID, when COVID struck, a lot of people who were invested in equities or stocks, they lost a good chunk of change, like I said before. And so it's important that you're invested balanced. And by balanced, I mean it's based off of whatever your plan is. So for instance, myself, I'm looking to purchase a property in the next 3-4 years. So what does that mean? It means that I can't afford to wait for the market to rebound and then recoup any potential losses over 10 years, because I need that money in 3 to 4 years. So I'm not going to invest in all stock or all equity, because as exciting that may be, it's not something that I can assume the risk. And so when we look at planning for our clients, which is a big part of what I do, it's goals-based investing. What's your goal? Let's achieve it. I have to do a risk analysis to make sure that what we're investing in is not only appropriate, but it's safe. It's safe and it's smart investing.
Okay, I like that goals-based invested. So when you're going through the planning phase with your clients, do you guys look into things like savings? With
100%.
your listening to the news and hearing all of how hard people are hit, it's almost like, does anyone even save anymore? Is that part of your financial planning for your clients?
Angela, that is a great question. I appreciate you asking that, because my clients, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. In the financial planning process, there's a lot of steps, especially when we're building a plan, because plans are very intricate. A lot of people have, a lot of life goals, but they also have a lot of dependents, and there's a lot of what ifs in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And a what if that I plan for almost first and foremost is what I like to call the emergency fund. An emergency fund is just a savings account. It's set aside. You don't need it unless it's an emergency. It's emergency fund. But it's 3 to 6 months of your necessary expenses. And when I say necessary, I mean an expense isn't necessarily going out to the movies or clubbing with your friends or renting whatever, going on vacation.
Is Starbucks a necessary expense?
Well, that depends how much you love the other coffee products. But it's things like that we're talking about, right? And so my clients, I plan these 3 to 6 month expense savings accounts with them. I always love the six month side of it. The better to be conservative, especially because COVID has lasted how long? 4 or 5 months now at least. So my clients, they don't need to worry about making sure their electrical bill is paid. They don't need to make sure that, or they can make sure that food is on the table. They can make sure that their mortgage is paid or their rent is paid, whatever it is, because that is probably your first and foremost savings goal, is to make sure that you are prepared for all the what ifs. And unfortunately, we live in a society where people like to spend in excess of what they're making, which is, a problem to begin with. But when we have this opportunity to save and to prepare, it's very important. And, the emergency fund gets some flack because people are like, it's never going to happen to me. They have the it's never going to happen to me mentality. And unfortunately, it's a rough mentality. And those who were, due diligent enough to actually make that emergency fund right now, they're sitting smiling, which is nice. They're smiling because of all the things to worry about right now, their finances isn't one of them.
That's good to know. So anybody coming to you, you look into all and I'm trying to summarize because you've thrown a lot of great information at us. And so I'm thinking, if I'm a client coming in, I get the sense that you're going to make sure that the near future is taken care of, in the sense of having an emergency fund ready for me. And, you're going to look into my goals and what I want. I guess I'll call that medium term, I guess. And then there's the long-term aspect, what happens, when I pass, and how my estate gets distributed and things like that. So that's fantastic. If we had more time, I have a feeling that you even have plans for babies, Zachary. Like you have such a robust practice. I am almost positive that there is something for babies out there, but it's nice to know that, coming into your firm, you look into every area of our finances, and you take care of clients that way. That's fantastic. Okay, so Rayhan, I want to ask you what's happened with your practice during this period.
Yeah, sure. So I'm gonna talk about like in the beginning. I think it was just like all these other industries. It was also a shock in our industry, mainly because the mentality of therapy, especially for children, because it's very interactive. Like we do art therapy activities, we do play therapy activities. So the idea of just switching to online, it wasn't that acceptable, I think, for a lot of therapists, but also for a lot of families. But I want to share with you, my idea of like what was happening in the beginning. I think in the beginning, it wasn't just that, the idea of switching to online therapy, but it was more that a lot of our clients who had issues with performance issues, going to school, being anxious, for tests, for having presentations. And all of a sudden, because they were already at home, that pressure, that anxiety was eliminated. So a lot of our clients, actually the parents who were in touch with us, they actually said that, our child is doing well. So maybe we can wait for your offices to open up again. So in the beginning, there was a lot of, we were taking some time off. Families actually doing good because I think there wasn't that much of a go, plan, going from school, picking up the kids, taking them to a class. That was eliminated from everyone's life. So a lot of the parents were already feeling a lot more relaxed as well. So in the beginning, I think everybody was enjoying it a bit too, right? Like, of course, like I'm talking about the ones who already, they didn't lose their jobs. They could still, work from home. They had the opportunity of, having maybe an older child who could, babysit the younger ones. But then what I have noticed in our industry is that maybe in the past month, a lot of parents started to reach out to us again, asking whether they can try online therapy. A lot of our existing clients, they start asking for online therapy because the child already had a relationship with a therapist. And we also had a lot of new clients who contacted us and they wanted to, explore the options, whether they could come to the office or, they were also open to the idea of doing online therapy. So there has been that shift in the mentality. I think also like a lot of parents, they also got used to doing a lot of their appointments online. So there has been a sort of an acceptance to this new normality, which is, you can have your child do their therapy session online. I think another matter that was important in the beginning too, and a lot of families, they needed, to take some time off to figure it out, was the matter of privacy. Because a lot of the times, you coming to an office, it means coming to a office where your privacy is, the privacy is respected. You're safe. You're away from, or take a break from the family, and like you come and you talk about your personal stuff. And a lot of our clients, they were hesitant because they weren't sure whether they could easily talk about everything that they wanted to talk about. And it's absolutely understandable, finding that space to themselves for an hour where they could easily open up and talk about everything. That was also another issue. But I think that, again, like, because time has passed, and I think a lot of families, they have kind of like come up with a plan on how to have their private time or like privacy while being at home. A lot of our clients, they have started their sessions again.
Oh, Ryan, are you able to take any new clients? Because I'm just thinking I can see how you might be able to, maintain the connection with an existing client. But what about new clients? Is there, you know, is online therapy a good option for them, or do you think they should wait until, you know, they can
I
actually come?
think that's a great question, because I think that it's very important if someone is having a difficult time, as they are struggling with, you know, heavy emotions, it's actually a lot better to start a session online, and down the road, you know, whenever the offices are open, start going to the sessions in person. And the reason I'm saying that is because a lot of us, we are used to having FaceTime calls with our friends, with our family members. A lot of the times, you know, children and teenagers, they're very technology savvy. Like, I think that especially for children and teenagers, if the parents, they keep an open mind in the fact that, you know, they can start having a connection with someone online, children and teenagers, they can do that. The same thing goes for, you know, older adults, which, you know, as I said, like, we all do FaceTime, we all connect with a lot of people in our lives online. So just keeping that, just keeping an open mind to this whole idea of just, you know, talking to someone online is definitely going to eliminate one of the main barriers in seeking out for help. A lot of our clients, they do understand that, you know, we are not offering online sessions now, and when they contact the center for the sessions, they're absolutely fine with doing online sessions.
Okay. So you're doing only online sessions now, no in office. So do you guys give any sort of special support to children? Do you work with children, right, Rain?
Yes. Yeah.
So how would a child, and I want to just give you a hypothetical scenario. So, you know, let's say I have a 10-year-old that's used to, you know, going for their karate classes and ballet lessons and school friends, and now they're stuck at home with mom and dad that are always, you know, fighting. And this is in no reference to any clients of AP lawyers. I just have to make that clear.
Yeah.
You know, these things happen. And so how are they able to reach out to you, and can you support that child? Because it might not be convenient for the parents to not be in the house. The arguments may be inevitable, but is there a way that you can support that child to manage?
Definitely. What I've been trying to tell the parents is that these are difficult times for adults, but also for children. So it's not just the children who are, you know, they get bored and they're frustrated because, you know, it's that sense of confinement, losing that usual routine that they always had. You know, losing the social and physical contact that they had with, you know, their friends. So what I try to tell the parents is that there are certain things that they can do at home. And then if they feel that, you know, the feelings that the children are experiencing, they're consistent and they really need, you know, to seek out help, definitely they can ask for online therapy. One of the things that I've been you know, really encouraging parents to do is to make sure that their children, they have a routine. The reality is that children, when they go to school, the school gives them that routine. You know, they know that they have math in the morning, then they have gym, then they have English, but somebody else takes care of creating this routine for the children. So now that responsibility falls on the parents. Now that, you know, the school is not there, the summer camps are, a lot of them have been canceled. So it's up to the parents to create a simple and fun routine for children. So a routine is not always, you know, having to wake up, doing chores around the house. It's very important to include fun activities, to include, you know, play in that routine as well. But it's important for a child to know that, you know, now that I wake up, I know how my day is going to kind of look like. Reach out to their friends, you know, virtually, set up FaceTime calls with their friends, with their cousins. If you need to kind of take them out, you know, on a ride or on a bike ride and like get an ice cream, like do that. There are certain things that parents can do, you know, just be there for the child. And then if they really see that, you know, the child is still struggling, definitely ask for that online help. It's a lot better. There's no harm in it. That's what I keep saying, that, you know, you can always give it a try. It's not gonna worsen the situation. If anything, if you see that, you know, the child doesn't feel comfortable, or, you know, they can't really connect with the therapist online, you can stop it.
Exactly. Okay. Wow. I like that. The idea of a routine. I guess for some of us, when we hear routine, it's like boring, but yeah, it's nice to know that it could just be a routine of, you know, maybe mostly just fun activities, right? But okay, so what about the adults? Because it's a struggle for the adults as well. From the, I don't even know who's better off sometimes. Is it the single person that just has to stare at their walls? Or is it the parents that have to deal with the children all day long? Like, what kind of supports do you guys offer for adults?
Well, obviously, as I said, like, these are difficult times, I think, for both scenarios that you mentioned, but specifically, like, it's just important for, you know, both of these adults to make sure that they give themselves some alone time, you know, some downtime. The beauty of, you know, having children is that you can kind of help them calm themselves down by showing them how to do that. So a lot of the times, you know, having a downtime, it doesn't mean that, you know, you have to be completely alone. You can introduce a quiet activity to your child. You can kind of teach them, you know, how to be quiet, how to maybe, you know, just close your eyes, not even closing your eyes, you know, you can just be quiet, like, this is quiet time. But mirror that, like, show that to your child how to do that. For those adults who have the privilege of, you know, having the partner with them, take turn into taking care of the children and, like, meeting their needs, and make sure that you do have a plan for that half an hour of a break that you get, you know, because half an hour, it passes by like that. And if you know, you don't kind of have a plan, you can just spend it all on your social media, and the next thing you know, it's your turn to attend to the children.
So, Rain, what you're saying is we should take, so this downtime is not downtime, because I imagine downtime, you know, on Instagram. So that's not what you're talking about.
No.
You're saying completely and fully unplug from everything.
Exactly. I'm talking about, like, mindful activities. I'm talking about anything that you want to do, you know, if anything from taking a shower to, I don't know, like, calling a friend, or like calling someone that you wanted, you've been meaning to call, or you know, taking care of your own needs. So at the end of the day, it doesn't feel that, you know, the day passed by and you haven't done anything for yourself. At the end of the day, you can say that, well, you know, it was a busy day, but I also got to do a couple of things for myself. That's why I'm saying, like, create a list of things that you want to do in your downtime. Okay. And just make sure that you follow that, instead of, you know, like, disconnecting from social media is the number one thing that you have to do for your downtime.
Okay, great tips there, Rain. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, Erin, can you please tell us how, you know, how has your practice been affected, or your industry as a whole been affected by this pandemic?
You know, I've tried to prepare to answer this question, and it doesn't matter how many times I tried, it always comes back to a very big and inflammatory subject. So the real estate market has been, you know, for the sake of the people on the line and the interest they have, the real estate market took a shock, I would say, during March, April. We could see a sharp decline in activity, and that was, when you're looking at May and even now June, you can see actually an increase in activity, and the market has not slowed down. So, you know, statistics aside, we do see, you know, the trade reporting, or MLS reporting certain numbers, and different regions. The Durham Kill report different numbers, York and Toronto, of course, as well. But I think at the end of the day, when you really look overall, the market showed to be resilient. And it's not overly surprising. So if I were to dissect the whole market, you look at the people that were kind of in the midst of a transaction, and had to complete it. So for instance, they already had sold their houses, but they had to buy something else. And then, you know, the group of people that were planning on making a move, but just kind of were on a pause. They're not really sure what to do now and how to do it. And then there was the group of clients, of investors that, you know, I'm familiar with, that kind of waiting for opportunities in the market. So I think, you know, these are the main three groups that I could see and operate within. We also have the condo market that is kind of, I don't want to say detached, but should be treated a little bit differently. And I think just to a few words on that. The condo market is somewhat different than the rest. And the reason I'm saying it is because of the Airbnb and the investment transactions that are happening there. And I think what COVID did to us, you know, there are lots of bad things to say about it. There's also a lot of good things to say about it. He kind of taught us, so, you know, what are the weak points that we have as owners, as landlords, as tenants, as homeowners. And one of the things that revealed, as my colleague Zachary will probably testify to that, is that the cash flow became or might have become an issue to some of them. And those you could see, you know, if not now, in the near future, kind of shaking off the market. So again, it's a little bit different market, a little bit more volatile. But overall, when you look at the, you know, the group of clients that, you know, you guys have is more detached homes and cycles in the market. One of the questions that you know, I was asked, and I'm going to answer, what is the best time to sell a house? The reality is that there is not really a good time necessarily. If I were to describe the cycle in the real estate market, most of the transactions, or most of the closings, are happening during June, July, with the busiest time of the year being June 30. And the reason is just before the long weekend of July, people want to take the time, make the transaction, move in. It's before kids are going to school, so they have the month to kind of you know, sort themselves out and then go to school at the end of August. It gives them enough time. So if I were to take this time, let's say July 1st, and kind of go backwards, it takes 60, 90 days of closing. So you need to close or finalize your deal 3 months prior to that, which takes the beginning of April. And then if you go a little bit backwards, you know, a month or two for you to list the house, close with an agent, do the necessary arrangement. You're looking at around February, March. That's most of the activities, or most of the time that, you know, all the papers are being signed and things are being finalized.
So, but I find it for a lot of our family law clients, I think the biggest concern they have now is, do we sell now? Well, this is stage 2, I guess. So do we list our home for sale now, or do we wait until, we don't even know until what, right? So, I mean, can you help us? Like, should we wait until, and until when should we wait? Or should we, because I hear the market is resilient, so should we just go ahead and, you know, have them come list with you and just move forward with it, because we just don't know what to do?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and I'm being asked that quite often. The answer is don't wait. There's really nothing to wait for. I think between trade, RICO, all the governing bodies, the Ontario government, you know, all the specialists around, I think we've taken a lot of precautionary measures to really protect both sellers and buyers. And what we see in the market, first of all, you cannot enter a home without signing full set of documents that you've not been exposed. Pretty much like going to the doctor's office. You have to, you know, declare certain statements. With that, there is a lot of sanitization. Obviously, the agents have to be present. Gloves on. You're not allowed to touch anything. Just walk through and see what you want to see, but that's it. I've had clients or sellers that ask specifically to come in 2 stages, which means come see the backyard. And I'm talking about more of a bigger properties with acreage around it. So come see the back, see the outside of the house, So if you like what you see, you know, maybe the ground is too patchy or the shit that I have is not to your liking, have a look around first. And if you still like it, schedule another appointment, and then we're going to get you in under those restrictions. I've seen that too.
That's interesting. Is
yeah.
that a new thing? Is that a new, is that sort of a new thing that came up as a result of COVID? Because that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I think it was more of a innovative thought coming from the seller themselves. An older couple that, you know, probably considered to be a higher risk from a health perspective. And that's the way with, you know, with their agent, that's what they decided to do. And I think it's a great idea. So that's, you know, that's one example. The other example is, and we've kind of seen it in the market prior to that. We've been automating our systems for months now. We have DocuSign. So most of the system, most of the transactions being done online with electronic signatures with an iPad. We don't walk with documents anymore that require, you know, more of a physical touch. We don't see that anymore. We see pretty much iPad, you know, just click on a button, you signed, and we're kind of finalizing those transactions. One, two, we do see more and more usage of professional photographers with drones, and really, it's called the dollhouse. So it's pretty much gives you the ability as a buyer to log into a certain property and kind of play with it as almost as it was a dollhouse, and then go drill floor by floor and go into the bedrooms, and almost virtually you're there. And that gives a lot of I would say screening, because if you feel that you're there through the screen, but you don't really like it, then most likely you're not going to ask to see it physically. You see, so kind of it's just another process of elimination.
I mean, this sounds like a good idea that should definitely survive COVID for sure. Because how many times have we gone to, like, just looked at pictures and then we go into a home? Like, this sort of detailed look sounds like something that, you know, should stay for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so okay, I think so that answers my question there. Wow, I think we're a little bit ahead of time, but is there anything you think we should know regarding the markets? For us, you've given our clients a huge answer for sure, which is just do it now. But is there anything else we need to know going into that?
One of the things that I should say most people, but some people will not take under consideration. We are a country that largely affected by legal immigration. And this is important to keep in mind when you look at the volumes in the market, and you know the market will collapse and it's going to drop, and there's a lot of intricacies to that involve I want to say appraisals, and this that can, you know, kind of you know, stick handling the whole process occasionally. But when you look globally, we have over 300,000 people coming to Canada legally. 200 and a change thousand people stay within the GTA. That's if you take 4 people household in average, you're looking at 50,000 families a year that come here to the GTA on an annual basis. They need to live somewhere. And this is, in my opinion, the most contributing factor to the resiliency of the market. If something drops a little bit, somebody that came from overseas will take possession because they need it. So I would caution any words on, you know, extreme volatility either way. You know, we can see drop, we might see a drop, but I would avoid terminologies like crashes and you know, get out and all those terminologies. We've been there. Be cautious, look for the good deals, but you know, don't hesitate if you find what you're looking for.
Good stuff, Aaron. So Zachary, I mean, you listened to Rain and Aaron as well. Is there anything that you think you could add for us? I mean, you give us a lot of good stuff already, but I'm not sure if there's anything that I may have missed and you want people to know.
One of the things that I see, and I put it myself, it's called an escape clause. It's being more and more in use. Be very judicial and diligent using that clause. It's very effective. And that means I'm going to buy a house. I want to move into your house. I have the finance. I'll do it. But I have to sell my own home to do it. But I'm at risk right now because of COVID-19 and everything I just described. I might not be able to sell my house to finance this deal. I'm going to put an escape clause, which means the deal is firm. However, if I'm not available, if I'm unable to sell my property, I'm going to have to back down from this deal and with no precautions.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting though. I'm guessing it will be time limited, wouldn't it be? It has to be. It has to be within like certain time limits. Okay.
So there's a time frame that is agreeable between the seller and the buyer. I put it in all my clients, like there's no question about that, especially those that, kind of hinging on their the sale of the home.
Okay.
Very, very judicial. Even the price range that you put your house for sale, maybe, factor a little bit of a drop, but that has to be factored in so you don't get into trouble.
Okay. Sounds perfect. Okay, I'm going to jump to Zachary now. Zachary, any parting words for us?
Any parting words? Well, there's one more thing I wanted to quickly just touch on after hearing everybody speak is a budget, budgeting. So that was a good question I think that we had prior to, was people want to know how much money that they should be allocating to one thing and how much to the other. And just a quick rule of thumb I want to leave people with is what I like to call the 70-30 split. And 70 is a maximum, 30 is a minimum. And that means that 30% of your income should be put towards savings. And that's again, a minimum amount. At least 30% of your income should be put towards savings. What kind of savings? Well, you could have a retirement fund for yourself, an education fund for your children, emergency fund, of course, first and foremost, goals-based investment. So, you have a goal, let's achieve that. And then the other 70% is some things that you certainly need to pay for and some things that you may want to pay for. And again, that's a maximum too, right? So, at most, I wouldn't be spending more than 70% on those things. But any parting words to the audience and to you guys? I just wanted to say thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you today as part of this panel. What everyone spoke about was amazing. It was very valuable to hear. And yeah, I just wanted to wish everybody a happy weekend.
Thanks, Zachary. And we do have questions. I don't know if anyone still has about 10 minutes to spare, because I know you're all very busy professionals and I really appreciate you giving us this time. So, I mean, I know you might have to run, and that's why I'm sort of skipping through a lot of the questions. And I think you guys give us some fantastic information. And Zachary, I'm just going to look through yours very quickly. So it's the best. So you told us about the best investment. The best investment for emergencies, Zachary. That's I think
that's the emergency fund. I think that's what people are talking about. So
okay, that's what
when I saw the question,
ones you told us about as well, would that be? Well, no.
Yeah. So when I saw the question, it took me for a whirl a little bit, because I don't know what emergency investment is in a sense where if it's an emergency, I need to invest something. I think that they were speaking about is emergency funds. So what are you supposed to put your emergency fund in, right? So you can obviously invest it. You can have it in cash, which is good and all. There's a lot of high savings accounts, high interest savings accounts. So there's some places like Tangerine or Simply or even Duca as a credit union, where if you put money in for 3-4 months, they'll give you, I don't know, 2% annualized, which is obviously less for the 3 months. But those are good places to keep your savings because they're liquid. You can access them, just like that. And at least you're optimizing a little bit. You're getting a little bit of interest. I never recommend investing your emergency fund in anything like stocks or bonds, because they're not liquid enough. You can't get them as quickly. Again, it's something you want to have, you can't risk, and you don't want to touch, and you just kind of let it sit there.
Okay. All right. So that's a good one. Okay, Aaron, I'm going to ask you very quickly. So yes, please, we need to know this. What could someone expect when selling the home as is in its current state? Okay, I'm not really sure I understand this question, so I'm going to read it again. It says, what could someone expect when selling the home as is? So I don't know if that means in terms of pricing, what can they expect? Okay.
So sellers normally do lots of legwork before they sell the house. They need to, you know, paint, change the carpet, stage it, make it look nice and appealing. And I think that's what the question is about. Look, I'm not gonna lie. The first thing that the client walks into a house, they look at one room. That's the kitchen.
Oh,
The
okay.
kitchen is the number one. It's the most expensive room in the house as well. For you to change cabinet and change countertops, you can easily get to 60, 70K. So it's the most expensive place in the house, and people pay a lot of attention to that. The next will be bathrooms and washrooms, and then later on bedrooms. So, you know, when a client walks in, it really depends who the client is. If this is a client that has the breadth to take possession and then get into renovation for 2-3 weeks, you know, factor the cost and the time, and then you know, and then move in. Sure, it doesn't make a big difference, but those are not normally those are not the normal. Those are not the leading stream of clients. Those who want to buy a house, they walk in and this is where I want to be, right? And for you to get this is where I want to. This is what I want to be, and I'm willing to pay for that. Then this is where the staging and the optics kicks in. I'm not gonna lie, it's very important. If you sell it as is and it's not as presentable as it should be, that can hurt you.
That can, okay. Okay, thanks for that. At the end, we're just going to please have you take one question for us. And okay, so you did address tips on staying home and you know, not losing our minds. That was good. We have a question. How do I process fear about loved ones in my life who are at higher risk of contacting COVID-19 and keeping them safe? Wow, that's a tough question.
It is a tough question. Yes. So it is a tough question because the fear is valid. You know, we never want to say that, you know, like, you don't need to be worried, because this is what the message that we're getting from our government, that no, you know what, you need to be worried. But what I want to say is that what is important to remember is that there's always a chance for any one of us to get sick, you know, to have an accident, to catch an illness. And it's really up to us whether we want to live our lives in the fear of when this accident is going to happen, when am I going to catch, you know, this illness, or am I going to enjoy my life? And once that accident happens, then I will decide how to deal with it. So with that, practicing mindfulness, staying in the present moment. Don't create scenarios that if I go to this place, I'm gonna get sick, or, you know, what if I get sick, or like, what if my, you know, my loved one gets sick. And another thing is to really stay with the facts. And the facts are that, you know, respecting the social distancing, wearing a mask, washing your hands, avoiding, you know, crowded places is going to help or like prevent, you know, the contraction. So really stay with the facts, stay in the present moment. Don't make, you know, scenarios in your mind about something that could go wrong, because the reality is that whether COVID-19 or, you know, another accident, another illness, there's always that chance. But it's really up to us. Like, what is it that you're going to choose? Fear over living in the present moment.
Rain, so I really like the idea of practicing mindfulness and being in the present, and it's been a practice. Let me just say that's the only way I can put it. I'm still practicing, but for those that, you know, for those that want tips, and for some of us that maybe have been practicing for too long and maybe want to advance, move a little further up, is that something that people could reach out to you for, to, you know, to help them with maybe some strategies of being able to, is that something that you offer clients as well? Okay, yes. So that's good.
Yeah, we offer that for, you know, adults, but also we offer, you know, tips and techniques on how can little children, you know, teenagers, they can practice mindfulness.
Fantastic. Wow, you guys have been so amazing, and we want to thank you so much for all of these great tips and answering all these questions for our clients. And if anyone has any parting comments for us, Rehan, do you have anything to say? Or
really, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. It was, lovely to get to, all of this information from every single professional in this panel, and I really appreciate having given this opportunity to be here with you.
Fantastic. Aaron, do you have any parting words for us?
Yeah, I echo that as well. Thank you so much for having me here. I mean, it's always a great opportunity, not just to to tell you what I know, but also to listen to all this fantastic group of people and kind of get a little bit of information for myself as well. So thank you, and don't hesitate to reach out to me if you need any further clarification, information, or whatnot.
Absolutely. We will have this video on YouTube, and would make sure that we put in links to, contact you. I know you've given us a lot of information, but I'm sure people have even more information or want to have this custom tailored to their specific situation. And, it's fantastic to be able to connect you with people that are clearly out there having these needs. And I have my fantastic team of lawyers up there, and it's a pleasure to have all of you here. And as they've said, work still goes on at AP Lawyers. Shireen mentioned we were prepared, honestly, for this. There's nothing, we were everything in terms of remote working, and we actually even closed before a lot of places had to. So they're employing different strategies and trying to move their matters along. But this has been very informative for us, for our clients, because they get to hear a lot of the law from us, but it's nice to actually hear from you guys. And the financial health, mental health, and especially the matrimonial home are just three of the very important subjects that seem to be a thread on all of our files. And appreciate you being here. So on that note, everyone, go enjoy the rest of your day. I see some questions under the Q&A, and what I'll do is I would send out the questions to you guys, and then you could just email us a quick answer, and would add it to a link on YouTube or put it on our blog. Somewhere would get to those answers, but you've been extremely generous with your time, and we cannot ask for any more. So thanks, guys. Thanks, bye.